All right, here we are on our Ending Emotional Eating Challenge, day number 3. It's so amazing that you're showing up again, and I just want to point out to you that you're doing what it takes. You have a step in front of you, and you're taking it, and that's all we need to do. So often we think, I need to understand, like, what is, what's the 10th step from now? How is this all going to look? I'm not there to this next level yet, but we don't need to worry about any of that when we just stay focused on, I have, what's my next step? If there's one in front of you and you're taking it, then that's all you need to do. So showing up, watching this video, integrating the things from the last couple of days and from today is all you need to do right now to know that you're making progress, you're on the right path, and you're going to get there. You're going to get there as long as you are taking the steps that, again, just the next one that's in front of you. So I'm super excited that you're here. I'm also excited because day 3 is a big day where we kind of switch from, day 1 was kind of understanding a little bit better why we do what we do and recognizing that every single thing we do with food makes perfect sense. We don't have some, addiction to food that we're, have to struggle against. There isn't all these wounds that we have to dig up and heal before we can change our behavior. It's just very simply a function of a functioning brain that loves to find patterns, that loves to habituate and automate things for us so that we can do the things that we've done repetitively, so we can kind of put them on autopilot and have more time and energy for other things as they come up. And that, as we talked about yesterday and we'll continue to talk about today, that works great when you're learning how to do something that you want to do, right? But when you're learning how to do something you don't want to do, not the best feature of our brains, but luckily we've got the science. We know how to shift out of those behaviors. And then yesterday I shared kind of what I call, my secret weapon for helping you meet the 5 pillars of effective weight loss, which I shared yesterday, which is your healthy nervous system. When your nervous system is living in that beautiful place of calm aliveness, you have access to the part of your brain that can create new neural pathways, that can be conscious in moments where you used to be that automatic zombie. So it's all really exciting news. And today I've got a lot to cover because I want to look at and talk about the fact that all of our experiences with food are driven by either habit, which I just kind of talked about briefly, and trigger, and when we talk about triggers, we're talking about our thoughts and our emotions, right? So any solution for challenges with food has to take into account the fact that we're dealing with habits and we're dealing with triggers. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Today, we're going to talk about the trigger with respect to our thoughts. And then tomorrow, we're going to talk about them with respect to our emotions. And they're very closely linked. So tomorrow will be kind of more of an understanding of some of the stuff that we're going to cover today. So as you can tell, that's kind of, we've got a lot on our plate today, which is wonderful. And I'm excited to share it. I just wanted to open up and ask before we get into today's topic, if there were any questions, or if the experience from yesterday as far as trying to dial into your nervous system and just kind of make some connection there. Just wondering how that was going for you guys, if you had any comments on that, questions about that. And of course that goes for you guys in the replay to respond either in the Facebook group or personally to me by email, which I have been hearing from a number of people by email. So that's always awesome. But anybody here have any experiences with respect to yesterday's integration work that they want to share? Don't have to, but just in case.
I didn't really have a lot to share because it didn't feel like I got a lot out of it. Oddly enough, every time I started doing it, my dog seemed to think he needed to be petted, and would not leave me alone. So I don't know what that was about, but I did try it, and I felt I was pretty calm yesterday anyway. I wasn't stressed or anything going on, so I don't know if that was part of it, but
Yeah,
I'm going to
absolutely.
keep doing it because it doesn't feel bad or anything. It
Yeah.
just, yeah,
Awesome. So you didn't experience a big change, which I'm not surprised, right? Doing
yeah,
something or just a few times, and that's part of understanding somatic work is that it doesn't necessarily, everybody's different. One person might have a big shift and might be like, wow, that was really impactful for me. Another person, especially like you said, if you're already kind of close to your, that awesome space that we want to be in most of the time, then you're not going to be shifted into that space. You're not going to tell a big difference. But maybe that calmness and that peace is, your dog kind of recognized that and was like drawn to like, ooh, that's nice. I want some of that too, Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I'm glad you're going to continue with it because it is something that, when we first started, we're not used to having a relationship with the nervous system and paying much attention to it, then it's it takes some time to open that up and to get familiar with it. So, just noticing what's going on for me. What do I feel? Even regardless of what it is, it doesn't have to be stress. It doesn't have to be, anything. It's just this is an opportunity for you to tune in, essentially, tune your dial to your nervous system and see what kind of signals are transmitted back. So, well, thank you for doing that. And, I'd be curious as, when there comes a time when maybe you're not feeling as relaxed and good as you were yesterday, if you could insert it into those kind of moments and then see what result,
yeah.
just be experimenting with it. So very, very good. Anybody else want to share their experience? Otherwise, I'll dump into our topics. Okay. So what I really want you guys to take away today is that all of your behavior with food, right? We explained on Monday, it's very simple to understand. And what I want you to walk away with today is kind of an understanding of the fact that it is every action that we take or every experience with food that is, kind of in that unwanted space, where I'm acting in a way that I'm not using food for fuel or nourishment, something else is going on. It's being fueled by habit and or triggers, right? And so that's when we understand that and we can look at it from that perspective. That's where we can apply our solutions and our energy, as opposed to trying to control yourself or trying to beat yourself up for doing something that you didn't want to do. So I want to just give you an example, and we'll continue to use this example as we go on, but it applies in all the kinds of situations that you're experiencing. But I just wanted to give us one so that we could kind of play with it and understand it a little bit in an more experiential way. So let's say, just for the sake of creating an example, we've got a person who goes through a rough time. Maybe they lost their job, or they had a breakup, or they had an injury that is really causing their life to be different and they're struggling with it, or whatever it is. And so they have these emotions, maybe they feel really sad or discouraged or frustrated or unworthy, or whatever it is, whatever kind of emotions are coming up. And in order to deal with those, they start they come home from work and then things are quiet and they're like, ooh, I'm starting to feel, those kinds of emotions, whatever they may be, and I don't like them. So rather than, and if they don't have the tools and the support they need to process those emotions, they're going to need something outside of themselves to kind of shift their nervous system, come back to the best feeling place that they can, because that's what we do as humans. And so they start getting a pint of Ben and Jerry's every night, and they watch TV and eat the ice cream. And that becomes something that they do for a little while. And then, thankfully, as hearts do, their hearts mend, or they find a new job or whatever, the circumstances change, but they still find themselves with the ice cream in front of the TV every night. So what originally started from a trigger, an emotional trigger, emotions that didn't want to be felt, then they carry that on, and later they're not experiencing those emotions, or not to the same degree, but they still continue to do the behavior. And sometimes, it's a combination of those. I get a little twinge of the emotion. And then because my brain has the habit, it's easy for me to go there. So it's, a function of these two pieces, the habit and the neurological pathways that were formed, and the trigger itself. And so these are two areas where we want to look at, so that we can, start to use the tools that will help us in both areas. So, we take with respect to the habit piece, okay, we take a pretty deep dive into habits and the method for how our brain best will allow us to either break habits or create new ones. And this is a big part of, understanding yourself and your own patterns, and then applying the method to each one of those patterns in a very systematic way, so that you can start to shift out of it in a way that your brain will allow you to do much more easily. So often we say to ourselves, all right, starting Monday, I am going to cut out all of these things, or I'm going to work out for an hour every day, or whatever it is. And we're just like, we're going to snap our fingers and we're going to just slip into a new habit overnight. And that never works. And we're relying on willpower to do that. And willpower is definitely not unlimited in supply. And so we find ourselves not being able to carry out our intended behavior. And so what we know, and thanks to a lot of brilliant neuroscientists, we now know so much more about how the brain accepts change, and how we can use that knowledge, right, to create systems that allow us to change a little bit slower. But in the end, it's actually the fastest thing we'll ever do, because the way we're going about it, we've been doing it for decades and nothing has happened except us getting more discouraging. So having a little bit of patience with this process is actually the way to do it much more efficiently and quickly. So now I'm going to go through these steps of the method, and these steps, I'm going to go through them briefly, and we also refine them a little bit when we're working together based on your individual situation, what goals you have, and things like that. So just know that this is kind of bare bones, of course, right? This is a short class, and we're only giving a 20 minutes or whatever to habits. And in actuality, we work on the habits and the formula kind of every week throughout the entire process of working together. So just know that, you're not going to take this information down and immediately start having all of these shifts. It does take a little bit of time, but this is the tool. So if you, are present and engaged right now, and, taking some notes as to what you can do, how you can turn this on one of your behaviors that is not helpful to you, then you do have the potential to shift. So, let's just going back to our example of this person who has the nighttime eating ice cream habit that's based on partly on, just the trigger or the cue, right? Because once that person sat in front of the TV with the ice cream a few times, right? I explained to the other day how the neurological pathway was formed for doing that behavior. So every time it was done, that pathway was strengthened. It got easier and easier for the person to engage in the behavior without putting any conscious thought or effort to it. It got automated, right? So now when the person at this point in this person's example, when they sit down or when they come home, their brain says, oh, I know what to do here. TV comes on and bam, of course, when the TV's on, I go for the ice cream, regardless of how I'm feeling I might have a feelings attached to that, and it might also serve to push some of them down, but I don't even need the emotions right now, because I have made this such a pattern in my life that, I just do it automatically with or without the feelings. So let's talk about the steps of physical habit change. The first one is to choose change. Now that sounds really obvious, but when you choose change, what you're saying is, I want this. I'm ready for this change, and I believe it's possible. If you don't believe it's possible, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we explore how our thoughts are related to our behavior, but if we don't believe it's possible, then it's not, right? You've probably heard a lot of information about that, but your belief in your ability to make a change is one of the most important aspects of being able to make the change. It's essential. You can't do it without that piece. And so that's the first step. You really want to get in connection with yourself and whether or not you're really ready for this change. And if you're ready, then you can do it. So that's step number one. Step number two is to kind of really determine, where is it I want to go with this behavior, right? Where is it that I want to go? What's my ideal? Okay. And when you're asking yourself your ideal, this should be something that you believe in, something that you really think, this is how I want to spend the rest of my life. Not, this is what I want to do until I reach a goal weight, or this is what my doctor said I should do, or what I read on the internet that, I should do. So for example, if your ideal, you may say, well, my ideal is to never eat grains, dairy, or sugar ever again. And, that can be, you may have seen that, like, that's the gold standard of healthy being and all of that. And so you adopt that and make that your ideal. But in reality, your life doesn't really serve you in your life. And it's almost impossible to maintain something like that. So if that's your ideal, you really want to look at that and ask yourself, why is that my ideal? Maybe you think that you can't be at your healthiest weight unless you do that. Well, that's something to kind of question, because I have not met anybody yet where that was the case for them, that they needed to have that kind of a diet in order to, live very, very healthy. And so you really want to play with this a little bit, with respect to what's your ideal. So for this person, with just this one habit, not everything all at once, but just with respect to the ice cream in front of the TV, they may say, it doesn't really serve me. Like I don't even really, I'm not tasting the ice cream because, I'm distracted by the TV anyway. I just notice, like, oh, my bowl's empty, and having not really any satisfaction around it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I don't want to eat ice cream in front of the TV. Not, I don't want to eat ice cream ever again. But I want to do it in a way where it's enjoyable. So maybe I'm out with my kids or with somebody else, and we want to get some ice cream, or maybe, I'm been thinking about that my favorite kind, and I want to have a little bit, but I'm going to have it, outside, taking in nature and just slowly and enjoying it. Maybe that's their ideal. And so it's also good to have, very, very specific kinds of goals, not, I want to be healthier, right? Or I want to move more. Those are great, but the more specific we can become with our goals, then the more we're going to be able to really see what the specific steps are that I'm going to be able to take. And that's what our brain needs. That's one of the most important things that it needs, is that clarity around, what does that mean for me to do that? So things like, I want to be healthier. You could say, I want to drink 5 glasses of water today, depending on where your intake is right now, or I want to get 7.5 hours of sleep, or whatever it is, something very specific like that. Okay. Yeah. So that is number 2, know where you want to go, really spend some time crafting that ideal, right? And then the third, and probably I would say most influential, step in this process is the development of your individual stepping stones. So how you're going to go from where you are today to that ideal that you've created. Because once you have the ideal, our instinct is to say, okay, that's my ideal. I've decided that's what I want to do. I start tomorrow. Right. And that's the whole thing that I was talking about earlier with the willpower. That's going to require willpower to do that, because that's too far probably from where you are right now. And you have to think about these neurological pathways. And so in order to get from here to here, you have to build a neurological network, a pathway, right, from here to here, which means, that's a long bridge depending on how far away you are. So the more helpful approach is to build that bridge, in pieces, stepping stones, so that you can, get some wins, first of all, because those wins by setting a stepping stone that you can meet, and that is not so full of, conflict and struggle, you're going to meet that goal and you're going to get that win. And the brain is going to be like, oh, wow, I didn't think we could do this at all. And here we are with this win. Wow, this feels great. I want to keep going, versus trying for over here, not being able to make it. And then the brain takes that information, is like, you loser, told you you'd never be able to do this. Why do you even bother? And the whole spiral with respect to having quote unquote failed. And there was no failure here. It's just, we didn't pick the right stepping stone for us based on where we were in the beginning, right? So we really want to stay out of that space of, that negative space, that place of defeat and failure, because as we're going to talk about more in today and tomorrow, our thoughts and our emotions are responsible for our behavior. So I won't go into it a lot right now, but obviously somebody who's feeling defeated and like they've, failed again, and just kind of frustrated and disappointed with themselves, what kind of action do they take? They're the one, they need comfort at that point. They need to feel better because they feel like crap because of, the inability to meet their goal. But somebody who's just had a win, like, wow, I took that step, and maybe that step is, it could be a lot of things. And for every person, it's going to be a little bit different. But with respect to our person in the example, they're moving toward that ideal where they can have ice cream, but they want to do it in a way that brings true enjoyment, where the ice cream somehow adds value to their life, right? As opposed to it's just something I do, I'm not even enjoying it, and it's hurting my health and my goals. So that person, as a first step, they might decide to have their ice cream before they turn the TV on. They may decide to have it 6 days a week and have one day a week where they don't do it. They may decide to substitute the ice cream for something else in the beginning, a better choice. Right. So there's so many options. Literally, we could sit here all day and we could probably we could collectively come up with, there's 4 of us here on the live. We could probably come up with 100 each, honestly. And so the point is it's up to you to kind of figure out, what is the step that I could take without a bunch of resistance, without the brain, really putting up a fight that, ooh, that would be really hard for us to do. We want to pick something that says, yeah, that's doable. That feels good to me. And also, not knowing that you can have those allowances, you can have it 5 days a week or 6 days, or if you're trying to, cut down on sugar, you might say, well, I have, 10 Starbucks drinks in a week. If I did half the sugar in all of those, that would be a great step. And a lot of times we don't take that first step because that first step we set for ourselves is just too big. Like in that Starbucks example, if the person is ideal was like, I don't want to order sugary drinks anymore from Starbucks, and that was what they were planning on doing, they would put that step, starting that step, they put it off and put it off and put it off, right? Because it would be so hard. And as humans, we never want to we always seek pleasure and avoid things that are painful. And so going from 10 a week to nothing is painful. We would not, welcome that step. So that's why, we'd be like, yeah, I'll get to it. Big time procrastination around starting a stepping stone that feels too big. And I've been so impressed by the people in my program that I work with that are willing to take that small step, instead of pushing themselves into something that they already know they've tried a million times and it didn't work, but being willing to just come back and say, you know what, each step will be there for me as I'm ready for it. And so I'm willing to take the one step I know I'm ready for today and just build on that and enjoy that win, and then stay in the mindset that allows you to keep taking the steps towards the end goal. A couple more things kind of quickly about our habit process is the next thing you want to do is think about this with respect to, especially when you're trying to build habits. So you want to incorporate some more movement in your life. It's easy, or drinking the water. It's easy to be like, okay, that's my goal, and you set it, and then you go about your daily life, which is calling you and pulling you in 10 different directions. And then you're like, oh yeah, when I woke up, or last week, I decided I was going to get more movement, but life happened, and I kind of, didn't have a really set plan, and I didn't have something reminding me that that's what I intended. So, here with respect to action triggers and also planning, actually putting those things, like just take the movement example for now. Say the person wanted to start out by moving for 10 minutes twice a week. Okay, how are you going to move? I'm going to walk once, and the other time I'm going to dance in my underwear. All right, when are you going to do those things? I'm going to go for the walk on, Wednesday afternoon, right after I get off work. I'm going to dance in my underwear Saturday morning when I first get up, whatever it is, right? Having that plan, and then some kind of reminder around it. Maybe it's on your calendar. Maybe there's a sticky note somewhere. Maybe you want to pack your gym bag and keep it in the front seat of the car, or whatever, where you're going to see it somehow, having that support so that, you can remember that this is your goal. So be thinking about, the specificity of your action, as well as the action trigger that's going to remind you. And then the last and final step that's kind of part of the main structure, and there are also other little things that we cover, and but just kind of for the sake of time, we'll keep it to these 5 steps. Is something called CEO time. And CEO time is just like it sounds. It's like every week, the way, or every, whatever time period, a CEO would sit down, evaluate the company's performance, how things are going, where they might need to shift. We can do the same. And it's crucial, actually, that we do the same, because we need to be tying back into, and really looking at what's working, what's not working, and so that we can adjust and be flexible with how we continue to make the progress. So some things you want to ask yourself are, what was my stepping stone? Was I able to meet it? If yes, what helped me? So that we can really, focus on those things and continue to use those things as we, progress and move into our newer stepping stones. And if we weren't able to achieve it, definitely staying out of judgment around that, but just looking at what made it hard for me and how can I make it easier. Maybe I chose something that was a little bit beyond where I was. Maybe the action trigger that I set, it didn't really, motivate me, or it didn't really, reach in far enough to say, hey, this is the time that you said you were going to do this. Whatever it is, that is, and sometimes it may be our thoughts, right? Which we'll talk about in a minute. So there's a lot of reasons why we may or may not have achieved the stepping stone that we set for ourselves, but that's never a place for judgment. It's data collection. We put on our lab coat and we say, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting that wasn't something I was able to do? Or isn't that interesting that I didn't think that I could, make steps in this habit that's just had its grips on me for so long, and I did. And so whatever the experience is, it's not good or bad. You're not good or bad based on the information that you collect. It's just information that helps you, for the next week. And so I really recommend doing CEO time, once a week. It's not a big process. Maybe it's 5 to 10 minutes long. It's definitely something that we do on a weekly basis together in our programs together, so that we can really look at it with that, I guess I would say, with that consciousness around just how are we doing. So again, this is kind of the bare bones of the habit process, which we refine based on you and your individual circumstances. But if you take these 5 steps, and actually the integration for this part of today's session is actually to, look at one of your current behaviors, not everything, but, just this one thing, like my example, the ice cream in front of the TV, or the mid-afternoon snack that I'm not even really hungry for. I just find myself doing it because the afternoon gets long and I get tired, or whatever it is. And think about these 5 steps as they relate to that one particular behavior, and set yourself with a routine that you want to try. And remember, a lot of the success that you would have would require you to have your nervous system in the right place, and also the support and guidance that you need. So be gentle with yourself as you try this in the very beginning. It does take some time and patience, but it is really powerful. So to the extent that you are willing to, kind of get in there and look at your own, those behaviors that are part of what keeps you from being your most aligned self, then you're going to make shifts and progress with it. So that's what I have for you on habits. And I'd love to switch to the second part of the solution that we're looking at today, which is your thinking. But before I do, are there any questions or, any comments? Is something that what we talked about with respect to habits, did it bring up anything for you? Any ideas around what you're going to choose? Anything at all that you'd like to share? Just want to make sure we're all getting all of that and it makes sense. Pretty straightforward stuff there. Okay, well, awesome, because I love this next part. It's, thinking about our thinking. And this is a topic that, we do throughout the entire program. We learn some really wonderful mythology and understanding of how our thoughts have power and all of that. But really, it's woven into the entire program, the whole year together. So it's kind of hard to really, bring it down and spend 15, minutes on it. I will also mention that there's a 4-part series on the power of your thinking in the YouTube channel. And that was over 4 weeks, and kind of went into a little bit more detail around this topic. It gave you some integration. And so those videos are available to you if you want to, dive a little deeper into this topic. But I think that it is one that, most of you will really, resonate with and be able to understand pretty quickly. It's mostly about just understanding the power of your thoughts, right? Your thoughts, whatever you're thinking at any time, is creating your emotional state, which creates then your behavior. So everything is in alignment with your thoughts over here, right? So if you want to take certain behavior, like, changing your habit with the ice cream in front of the TV, we have to look, instead of putting all your effort into controlling your behavior, the habit method and following that is a very gentle kind of shift and bringing awareness to the habit and showing you that you can start to shift slowly. But it's crucial that that your thoughts are in alignment with this ideal that you have for yourself with respect to the behavior. So it's important that your thoughts match the ideal that, hey, I want to have, I don't want to eat ice cream in front of the TV every night. I want to have ice cream when it's truly something that's going to add value and joy to my life. And that's not sitting in front of the TV every night, barely tasting my ice cream. So look at some of the thinking that could be behind the continued behavior. If our person's thoughts are, I have no control when it comes to food, or when it comes to ice cream, or this isn't going to do any good. Even if I were to, stop eating ice cream, there's still all these other things that I'm doing. And so I won't be able to lose weight. I've been heavy all my life, and that's just who I am. And I don't have any control, or I would just be too sad to be able to sit in those moments without my ice cream companion, or whatever the thinking is. If it's inconsistent with the person that is enjoying ice cream only in a way that adds value to their life, then they're not going to be able to act in that way. They might be able to on occasion, using their willpower, maybe for a week they could change their behavior, or maybe, a day here or a day there, but long-term, sustainably, it's not going to work unless their thoughts are in alignment with the behavior that they want. So it's very important for us to, understand how powerful your thoughts are, and also to understand what are my thoughts like with respect to the places where I'm living out of alignment with who I want to be. What are the thoughts that are contributing to that? What are the thoughts that are essentially creating that behavior, right? Some of the thoughts that I hear a lot are, when you're in the moment, when you're acting with the food in a way that doesn't feel good, there are things like, what difference does one bite make? One bite won't make a difference. And of course, one bite turns into many. Again, so I'll never be able to lose weight, so why bother? I simply can't say no to fill in the blank, pizza, ice cream, cookies, whatever. I have no control over myself when it comes to food. I deserve a treat after what I went through, or after this hard day. I deserve this. I need this. Those kind of thoughts. Food is the only thing that will comfort me in this moment. There's no other option for me, right? I have to do this kind of a thing. And that applies to food, right? When those moments when we're kind of making decisions, but all of our thinking is going to lead to some kind of action. So if we are letting our thoughts make us feel stressed, like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, I'm never going to get everything done, or I didn't do this thing well enough, I'm a loser. If those are the kinds of thinking that we are entertaining, then the emotional state that we're creating is definitely, low vibrational. It is discouraged, it's pessimistic, it's, you're not feeling good emotionally. And so when you don't feel good emotionally, you do things to comfort yourself and to help you, to help you not feel that way. And so that's the other way that our thoughts lead to behaviors with food that don't serve us. So you can kind of start to see like how important it is that we work with our thoughts, understand what they are, and then ask ourselves, our brilliant higher selves, is this a good thought? Is this a thought that's leading me where I want to go? Or is this a thought that's taking me where I don't want to go? Because you get to choose your thoughts. And especially for those of you who are a little bit newer to this community, you may have kind of a reaction, to that statement, but you are not your thoughts. Does anyone here, you guys have, I know you've done work and are, have a lot of familiarity with this. So, maybe that's not you, but I'm curious if, when you first started this journey, if you had the experience that you were like, what do you mean I'm not my thoughts? Of course I'm my thoughts. If I'm not my thoughts, what the heck am I? Right. And I know that was for me, I struggled so much with understanding, like, then what am I? I could kind of start to see, okay, well, maybe I'm not my thoughts because my thoughts are all over the place. How could I be all over the place all the time? It seems like I would, have some consistency or something. So it kind of made sense earlier that I wasn't my thoughts, but I couldn't quite figure out, well, what am I then? Anybody else share that experience? Maybe not now, but in the beginning of your work, where the idea that you're not your brain, you're not your thoughts is so foreign, is kind of hard to relate to in the beginning.
Yes, I definitely did. I remember when you told me like you're not your thoughts, I was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
That's where I spend all day, like what do you mean I'm not my thoughts? But just understanding that I can control, like just stopping myself when I'm having a bad thought, like just reminding myself, hey, no, that's not what we are, that's not what we're going to tell ourselves, and just noticing that I can stop myself and just control that and just start a different, more positive, more loving thought, and just telling myself, that's not who you are.
Yeah.
But it was definitely so hard for me to understand that in the beginning.
Yeah.
But yeah, understanding it is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know that really, for other people to hear that, I struggled with that and that you had the same experience, like, wait a minute, how can that be? I'm sure that helps them, anybody who's kind of feeling that way now, to know that that's a totally normal reaction. Of course you feel that way. That's where we spend all of our time, is up in our head, creating worlds. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. Actually, it's an awesome thing, because it just shows you, with the right training for your brain, you get to create whatever world you want to. And as Vanessa is reminding us, when those thoughts are beautiful and loving, you create a whole different life than the one where you follow and allow the self-deprecating and the negative kinds of thoughts to be the I guess the author of your life. So, many of us assume that we are just stuck with our thoughts. I can't change them. They're just there, but actually there is, again, thanks to neuroscience and all of the incredible things that we now know about the brain. And, I really love the work, for anybody who's interested, of Dr. Joe Dispenza, with respect to changing our thoughts and becoming what we're capable of being. And so I just want to bring a little bit to you today with respect to that, and give you your first step towards changing your thinking and realizing that you're not your brain, and you don't have to listen to all the things that your brain tells you. I saw that as a bumper sticker, which was so awesome to see that message spreading more and more. It was like, don't believe everything your brain tells you. Something like that I thought was really cute. But so I just want to, reiterate, and I think that we've touched on this a little bit, but, every time we take an action and every time we take a thought, we're creating a neural pathway. And then as we repeat that, we're strengthening the neural pathway. So I like to think of it, and I describe it frequently, as being like, okay, here's our neural pathway. We've just formed it. And every time we think that thought, that path, that neural pathway, gets a little bit smoother and a little bit steeper and easier to go down, right? So it gets to the point where you're standing up here with your roller skates on, and all you have to do is the wind comes, right, and you're sailing down that hill, and not only is it easy to go down, it's hard to stop it. So our thoughts can get hard to stop because they are so worn, and we don't put any conscious effort into having those thoughts. They're just there, and we just follow them because it is so easy to do so, and actually requires some effort to stop. No matter how bad that thought makes you feel, it still requires you to show up and you to have energy to stop it. And not to go off on another tangent, but just to remind you that if this is happening and you need energy and consciousness to be able to stop yourself from going down that steep, smooth hill, you can't do that if your nervous system is not in that place of calm aliveness. It won't let you. It's too dangerous. You don't have any energy for it. You don't have any capacity to do that in that moment. So just to kind of relate back to remembering how the work that we want to do, the habit changing, the thought redirecting, none of that can be achieved without the nervous system in the place where we want it to be. So if you want to change a thought that you have had, and some of these thoughts have been with us pretty much forever, right? So that it's very, very steep, it's very, very smooth, it's very, very fast. You need to create another path for you to go down. So you're standing at that point, you've got your roller skates on, and you've got the easy hill. You've got to create another path for you to take, for you to roller skate down. And that is not an easy thing to do in the beginning. I think of it as like, if this is your smooth, steep path, the new pathway is kind of like carving a path through the jungle with a butter knife, right? It's not there yet. You have to create it. So it does take some effort, right? But the tools that we have and that are really shared with you in the program is kind of like, instead of taking a butter knife into the jungle to create your new path, you can take a machete with you and actually be able to, get through there and form that path much, much quicker and easier. So it's not that it is impossible. I don't say these things to make you think, oh my gosh, it's such a battle. It's going to be so hard for me. I just want you to appreciate what's happening, so that if you think that or figure out what the new thought is that you want to take, that you want to start having, but you find yourself still slipping down the old path, don't feel like you're failing or like it's not working. It's just going to take you a little bit of time and repetitive effort to create that new path. But every time you think your new thought, every single time, you're removing branches and clearing the path so that it will get easier and easier over time. So I just really want you to understand that even if your thought redirection work is not producing huge changes in your behavior right away, that's okay. You're still making progress. You're still making progress. And there comes a point where, you stop taking the smooth path as often, and it actually becomes less and less steep. It becomes less and less smooth, a little less easy to go down. And you come to a point where you realize, wow, in any situation, I'm aware of the old path, and sometimes I still take it, but I'm also aware of the new path. And sometimes I take that. And at that kind of magical point, you gain a lot of momentum and grass starts to grow on that old path. And you find yourself empowered to think the new thought and act the new way. And it's a really beautiful process as you connect with what you want more than what you have always been. It just allows you to kind of step into that space of your aligned self, your true self, right? Because all of this stuff that we're talking about with respect to the negative thinking, the disbelief in ourselves, all of that stuff was just put on us at some point. It's not who we are. And we can remove that and start living from this incredible place of freedom, not only with food, but from the kinds of thoughts and the thinkings and the struggles that we've had in the past. It's such a beautiful aspect of this journey. Healing your relationship with food is, yes, you heal your relationship with food, you gain freedom with food, but you gain so many more beautiful things in your life, and that stems from doing these practices, changing your thoughts, because you change your thoughts with respect to food, but you change your thoughts with respect to yourself, who you are. And learn, like Vanessa said, loving thoughts, supportive thoughts for yourself. And at that point, everything changes. It has to. And you get to be who right, that you can be, who feels most authentic to you. And that's a whole new life, right? Aside from just the food and the health and the weight loss, it's so much more than that. So as I promised, I want to give you, even though we're just kind of, surface layer with this thought redirection work, I do want to give you your first step, right? And that's all you need for right now. Your first step is awareness. awareness with respect to your thoughts. And you may say, well, that's, pretty obvious. I know what I'm thinking. But for most of us, we have a lot of these thoughts that we've thought so many times that they're just kind of there. And we're barely aware of them, even though they are essentially creating our life. They're creating our actions and informing every decision that we make and the way we see the world. And yet we have little awareness of them. We just know that's yuck. But we really want to get in there and really start to understand what are the thoughts that are playing in my head and what are the results of those thoughts. Because when we see that, then we can, we've shined the light on them and we can start to see and go through the rest of the process, which involves, figuring out what we want to believe instead, and then learning the tools to create those new neural pathways so that we can choose that easier, more and more over time. Now, as you may have heard from hanging around here for a while, we have between 50 and 70,000 thoughts a day. So obviously you're not going to be able to be aware of all of them. That would be more than a full-time job. So it's more important that you start to get in touch with those thoughts that leave you with the emotions that you don't want, the difficult emotions, the challenging emotions that don't serve you, that don't feel good. What are the thoughts that are behind those kinds of emotions? So whenever you start to feel those kinds of emotions coming up, take a pause and ask, what's going on? What are the exact words? And I really encourage you to write them down, as opposed to just kind of, getting that quick impression of them, like, oh, I was thinking that I'm not good enough. Yeah, okay, that's better than nothing. But if you can sit with yourself even for 3 to 5 minutes and write some things out and really start to understand those thoughts, because when we not only understand the thoughts, but we kind of can look at the roots of the thoughts and really start to get to know them better, that's when our thought work is really powerful. So the more you can understand about those thoughts, the better. Another way to go about this, and especially if you don't want to sit, you don't feel like you have the capacity or the ability right now to sit in those uncomfortable emotions and look at it, that may be something that you need a little bit more support around before you're able to do that. You can just maybe check in with yourself 2 or 3 times a day. Maybe right before meals or right after meals, or somehow tie it to something else that you're already doing, and just check in and ask yourself, what are my thoughts been like? What are some of the things that I've been thinking about? And again, trying to write them down. The point is, how can I get more familiar on a deeper level of what the thoughts are that are running through my brain that are actually, creating my life? Because you're giving these thoughts the ability, the power to decide what your life is going to be like. So it's definitely worthwhile to take a look at those thoughts and ask yourself, are these leading to the life that I want? If not, I have a very effective method for changing the things that I don't love about my life. And that is working with my thoughts, right? And of course, all of this is all tied up together, right? There are millions of books, wonderful books about habit change. There are lots of incredible resources and gifted teachers in thought redirection and, inner child work and emotions and on a nervous system and on and on and on. But unless, our challenges of food and really just who we are as complex people, all of these things are at play for us all of the time. So we can't just pick up a book on habit change and read that and try to apply it if we've got thoughts that are inconsistent with the behavior that we want, if our nervous system is not in the place where we need it to be in order to make change, if we have emotional wounds, or if we've never learned to process our emotions. Taking any one of these pieces is not going to be effective for us. So that's why we and I'm presenting to you kind of that big picture that I described, on day one. I said, this is a little bit of a bird's eye view of all the different aspects of this journey, but we have to encompass all of them if we're going to actually overcome this once and for all, because they're all at play for us. So I just want to kind of, make sure I'm highlighting how all of this plays in together. We're never gonna, just look at one aspect of this journey. It wouldn't serve us. And I know that sometimes, right, that's what we've tried to do in the past, is just, go for the habit, or go for the thoughts, or go for the diet plan, or whatever it is. But we need a comprehensive approach that, that really addresses all of these issues. So we've got some beautiful integration work for today, and also, of course, taking this forward. It's not about finishing this work up today and never going back to it. These are some things that you can spend some time on, the habits and the five points or steps to building or breaking a habit, and maybe taking that and looking at one thing for you in particular, and then gaining this awareness and really getting crystal clear on what the thoughts are that are creating your behavior, and therefore your whole life circumstance. What are those thoughts? Starting to get really familiar with them. You will see them in a different light as you really, open yourself to figuring out what they are. So today, that's a lot of stuff, I know, which, is awesome, because it means there's, stuff that can be done. And so I just want to make sure that all of that makes sense, and you guys are feeling hopefully energized around taking some steps to make these shifts happen. And let's see if there are any questions or comments or anything else with respect to this information, or anything else for that matter, but in particular about the stuff we've been going over for the last hour.
It is a lot of information, a lot of things to think about.
Exactly.
I did have a question. What was the name of the 4-part series on thinking?
Yeah.
Where would I find that?
Yeah. So on my YouTube, which is Lori Montree, Nourishing Weight Loss. And it is, so there's 4 parts, and it is harnessing the power of your thoughts, I believe.
Okay.
And I'm going to write myself a note to put that in the exact name, so you can look at it, or even I can send that out, the 4 videos. But that is, goes in a little more depth with this second part of what we talked about today, and just a little bit of, more understanding of the power that you hold to create whatever you want, with respect to food, but in every aspect, through the power of your thoughts. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Absolutely. So again, I know this was a lot, and that's why, the program that I teach is a year long, because you can't make these shit, right? Part of it is learning the information, integrating it into, your life. But the other thing is, we need life to come in and bring us experiences that allow us to put these things into practice and see how they play out in the various circumstances of life. So it does take time, but again, it's a beautiful unfolding. The process is one where, is gentle and very doable, but it does take some time. Yeah, this is a lot of stuff, especially when you combine it with, the last 2 days and then the 2 days to come. So just kind of, I hope it's encouraging, because it shows you like, wow, there's so much available. And, I've tried to do it with respect to this little aspect of the journey, or I've just tried to focus on my behavior or whatever. And that's the reason why it didn't work for me. Not because there's anything wrong with me or I'm not capable. It's just, I wasn't bringing all the pieces together. So I hope that that's what you can see from this week, and the seeing how much information there is and how much possibility there is for you when you're getting all the tools and the support all at the same time. So Yeah, so thank you again, all of you, for being here, spending time with me. It is a really special place for me to be. So I appreciate you guys and look forward to hearing more from you guys on the replay, and anybody's questions, or if you're struggling with implementing any of this integration work, I definitely want to hear about that, because there are things that we can do to help you get it to the place where it serves you wherever you are at this particular time. So yeah, once again, thank you. Have a beautiful day. I'm excited for tomorrow. We'll talk a little more about the emotional piece, because like we said, thoughts equal emotion equals action. So we'll put our focus a little more on the emotional piece, and understand what it means to be able to be in charge of your emotions, just like your thoughts. That's really empowering and an important part of this bigger journey. So I look forward to that, but reach out with anything that you need in the meantime. Otherwise, I'll see your beautiful faces tomorrow.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a good day.
You too.